And welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show here on the Area 51 Sports Network. I am Adam Kurzenblatt, and as always, joined by Andy. So, Andy, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How about yourself?
I'm good. So, you know, we like to talk a little bit about non-sports things sometimes. So, Andy, I got a quick question for you here before we go. In the WLHL on Area 51 chat, we've had some discussions about iced tea. So, what is your rankings of the iced tea that you can get here in Vancouver?
Like you mean like sweet tea or regular
Like
Nestle iced tea?
you go to the restaurant, you go to 7-Eleven, and you got the whole iced tea section. Where are you going with your selection?
You know what? I actually like those Arizona iced teas, the big cans you get for 99 cents. I'd probably like those. Or I'm not a big Nestea guy. I guess if I had to buy one at the store, I like the powder. I think it's called Good Host.
Now, the correct answer is pure leaf iced tea. Uh,
Yes, that's good too.
Now that's at the top. And I know Liz Child, who also writes for WHL on Area 51, agrees with me wholeheartedly about that. So, but as long as it is not that brisk
Yeah,
BS, whatever they put into that can,
I don't
we're
like that
good.
stuff.
That is not iced tea. I'm sorry. That's just a packet of sugar inside of brown water.
Yeah, I agree. I do not like that one bit.
Yeah, it has a weird aftertaste as well.
It does. Yeah, I agree. It's not good.
So, getting back to what we actually are talking about, we're talking, we're going to go over some NFL draft stuff that is taking place in an hour. NHL season's wrapping up. We have the NBA playoffs and then a little bit of baseball. So once again, remember that all of our betting lines do come from bet99.com. So head over to area51sportsnetwork.com/betting. There you'll find a link to bet99.com. When you click on it, you get whatever you put in up to $600 of an initial deposit you get back as a bonus. So make sure to check that out. And once again, you can always interact with us during the show by leaving some comments. And if we get any, we will try to answer them. So why don't we jump in here to baseball? We'll start off there. Now, there's only two games that haven't on the schedule, it looks like today, that haven't started yet. We got the Chicago Cubs, your Chicago Cubs, taking on the Atlanta Braves. Kyle Wright for the Braves, Drew Smiley for the Cubs. Braves are at minus 220. Cubs are at plus 180. Where are you going with this one, Andy?
Yeah, this one's interesting because Wright isn't exactly a stud pitcher for the Braves quite yet. However, the Braves are the defending champions, and it's Ronald Acuna Jr.'s season debut after tearing his ACL. So there's not a ton of value at minus 220 for the Braves, but I'd probably pick the Braves. I think they're the better team. They're at home, and getting their superstar back seems like a pretty easy win for them.
And then the other game tonight, this one's a 4:45 start. Arizona Diamondbacks at St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals are going with Dakota Hudson on the mound, while Diamondbacks are going with Humberto Castellanos. So we got the Cardinals at minus 180 and Diamondbacks at plus 150. Where are we going on this one?
Yeah, Diamondbacks are a brutal team. I'd probably take the Cardinals minus 1.5, pays out at plus 120. This has the potential of a game that can get out of hand really quick. So Cardinals minus a 1.5 at plus 120.
And then before we switch over from baseball here, what has been the most surprising team for you so far this season?
Most surprising team? That's a good question. A team that I've been I don't know if necessarily a team that I've been surprised by, but the New York Yankees and Anthony Rizzo. He's having basically an MVP caliber season the first month of the year. I don't think I expected that. I don't think the Yankees expected that. And as such, the Yankees are, they're leading their division at 13-6, which is one loss less than the Blue Jays. So right now they're on top of that division. And I guess if I had to pick a team, I would probably say the New York Giants. You look at who they lost in Gosman and some of their bullpen pitchers and some of their big bats, and they're at 13-6 as well. So they're tied for the best record in the league. The Mets are 14-6, but they won this afternoon. So I guess player would be Rizzo and team would be the Giants. I did not expect the Giants to come out of the gates this hot. I mean, there's still like 140 something games to go, but first 3 weeks of the season, they're having a good start.
For me, like we did talk about this a little bit, before the season, but it has to be the Texas Rangers for me. I didn't think that they were going to start 6-13. This is a team that added, Corey Seager, a team that had Marcus Semien, who set all these type of records last year with the Blue Jays. Like their pitching isn't as bad as 6-13. And like that is just we knew that the Rangers were gonna it was very hard to tell what the Rangers were gonna be this year, but I don't think many had them as a 6-13 team, through the first 20-ish games.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super high on the Rangers. I agree. I don't think their pitching is as bad as it's performed. However, when you look at their games, like they haven't really been blown out. I mean, the only quote unquote, I guess, blowout you could say is they lost they beat the Angels 10-5. They lost to the Angels the next day 8-3. And otherwise they've lost every game by 1 or 2 runs. So they have close games. I just think that's the inexperience in their bullpen and the back end of the rotation isn't quite where it needs to be. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think I saw the Rangers being 6-13 bad. I don't think anybody had them as a playoff team, but I don't think they were this bad either.
And to put that into perspective, MLB does have a statistic where they talk about expected win-loss, and the expected is that the Rangers should be 9-10 this year.
Yeah, well, that speaks to the close games, right?
Yeah. And yeah, so that not many, like the Yankees are supposed to be 13-6, but yeah, the Rangers being -3 games under expected is very surprising, especially this early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so why don't we jump over to the ice and the NHL here? We got a bunch of games already started, but what we'll do is we'll look at some games that haven't started, and this one is I would say is a potential. I don't know if these two teams will play each other. Calgary and Minnesota. I guess the only way that they could play each other really is in the
final.
The Western Conference Final, which is possible. This is a -109 split, so both teams have a -109 on this game. Over under 6.5. But it does speak to the fact that they do have the Calgary Flames winning, because the Calgary Flames are -1.5 on the line.
Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, I haven't finalized my bracket yet, but I think I am leaning towards a Flames Wild Western Conference Final. To be honest with you, I don't know the goalies who are playing. I don't know if the Flames are resting any of their players like a Chuck or Lindholm or anything. Same with the Wild. I mean, the Wild need to, I think, win out to get the second seed and home ice advantage versus the Blues. Whereas the Flames are locked into the first seed. They're not catching Colorado for the conference title. So I guess if I had to pick here, I'd take Minnesota -109. This is one of those games where, basically any score wouldn't surprise me, just because there's so many factors about, who's playing, who isn't playing. If they're playing, are they going full out? If they're resting a little bit, you know what I mean? It's, I think it's game 82 and game 81 for these teams. There's not much left to play for.
Yeah, I think this is really a toss-up. This is one of those where anything can happen. So Don't really. That one's not. That one's kind of hard to put your money on. This one is interesting though. Nashville versus Colorado. So Colorado's at minus 300. Nashville's at plus 240. This game means nothing to Colorado really. I think unless you want to argue that about the President's Trophy, which I mean, great, but I don't think they're going to risk losing players over trying to win the President's Trophy. But this one is plus 240 for Nashville, minus 300 for Colorado. Nashville's still fighting for playoff positioning, but they did just lose UC Saros for potentially who knows, I guess, really. They say that he could be gone for quite a while. So are you buying this minus 300 from Colorado?
I am. Like you said, Saros is out. I don't know how long. Even if he's healthy, I have a hard time imagining he'll play again in the regular season because they already have a playoff spot clinched. David Riddick's an awful goalie. Like let's be honest here, he's not good. So yeah, I mean, I'd take Colorado minus 300. It's not really good odds, and in a one game like hockey, anything can happen. But I would take Colorado minus 300.
And then we'll wrap this up with Vancouver versus LA. Meaningless game for both teams. LA's already clinched the third seed in the Pacific. Vancouver is already eliminated. I know that they want to get to 40 wins this year. I guess that's what, and players are kind of playing for bonuses at this point. But LA at plus 157, Canucks at minus 186. Now, LA did play last night, and Vancouver is wearing the black skate jersey, which they have not lost in this year. So do you think that is enough that Vancouver will take this one?
Yeah, I do. I think, like you said, they're 3-0 this year in the black skate.
Going to be 3-0 this year.
That's right. Thank you. LA has nothing left to play for. This is game 82. I don't even know who they're going to dress, to be honest.
Well, we know Alex Edler will be in the lineup.
Yep. Could be Edler's last game in Vancouver. I like the Canucks. I think, there's still a few things that these guys want to play for. I think JT Miller, still, 2 games left. He could still potentially get up to 100 points. I think a player like Pettersson wants to finish out the year strong and score a few more goals. Connor Garland seems to have been heating up. Quinn Hughes probably looking to extend his franchise record for points and assists a bit more. So when I look at the game, Vancouver's at home, their last home game. I think Vancouver has a lot to play for, whereas LA is probably kind of just sleepwalking through this one, waiting for the playoffs to get going next week, I should say, after the weekend.
Yeah, and this will be Dustin Brown if he plays last game in Vancouver. So that for all the years that he's tormented the Canucks, especially in that 2012 first round series. You got to think that tonight might be will be a special night for him if he does play against the Canucks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a connection Dustin Brown has to Vancouver, but you think of the playoff series over the last years. I think of 2012 specifically. The year the Kings first won the Cup, obviously they swept Vancouver, so they won games 1 and 2 in Vancouver. Dustin Brown was still a really good player at that time. You're kind of like the Ryan Getzlaf. There's not a super big connection to Vancouver, but it is one of those guys who's battled with Vancouver in the playoffs for most of his career. So potentially it could mean something to him.
For reference, he's played Vancouver 63 times in his career. He has 27 points. But yeah, you just think about those playoffs where he just took over and just like being one of those kind of annoying players to play against, like the little stuff after the whistles, the hits that he would throw, like the little spears that he would throw at different players. So I guess congrats to Dustin Brown. I think he's the last player to announce his retirement from that 03 class, which, I mean, that NHL 2003 draft was pretty special. Oh no, wait, what am I talking? He's not the last player.
He's the
Somebody
latest
said he
player.
was.
The
He's one
latest
of the last
player.
player. He's one of the last players to announce.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty stacked draft. Whether it was Eric Stahl going second overall, Getzlaff 19, you got Bergeron at 45th, Pavelski went 205th, got Corey Perry, Parise in that draft. Like Marc-Andre Fleury, of course, the number one pick. Like that was a pretty special draft year.
Well, you know what's crazy? I had a poll about this the other day on Twitter, and I think my four options were Bergeron, Shea Weber, Ryan Suter, or I think I said other. And out of like 80 votes, Ryan Suter didn't get any votes, which is surprising because you look at Ryan Suter's career, like he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer, multiple gold medals, never won a Stanley Cup, but he's always been, when you talk about the best defenseman in the league, the most consistent defenseman, he's been right up there, and he didn't get any votes. So, I mean, it goes to show you the depth and the amount of special players that came out of that draft, right? Like Bergeron ended up winning the poll, and he didn't get picked till 45th overall, right? He's not the leader in points in that draft, not the leader in goals, but 45th overall pick, and he's probably the best two-way center of the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we're forgetting one important name from that draft list, and that is Mr. Louis Eriksson, who also went in that draft.
Yeah, I think he went before Bergeron, actually. Wasn't he like 36th or something?
Yes, he
35th?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just some like breaking NHL news while we're talking NHL. It looks like the NHL playoffs are going to start on Monday. So next week we'll have some NHL playoff preview stuff, even though a couple games will have gone on, just so that we know the matches before we start talking about series and stuff. So we'll jump over to the NBA quickly here. Two games that haven't started yet. One is starting in about 8 minutes. Phoenix Suns at New Orleans Pelicans. Now, this is a elimination game, but it's a game 6, which I don't think many people thought Phoenix was going to, or New Orleans was going to force a game 6 because they were the last team in. New Orleans at plus 125, Phoenix at minus 155. I think that in front of the home crowd, New Orleans is going to force a game 7 here.
Yeah, I do too. They seem to have all the momentum. I think Devin Booker is coming back for Phoenix, but I mean, he's been off since, partway through game 1, right? So hasn't played that much. I still don't know how healthy he is. This kind of seems like a desperation move by the Suns. And like you said, in New Orleans, I expect them to have a loud crowd, and I would be betting my money that they force game 7 as well.
And we'll jump over to the other game. That is another close series, and this is Dallas at Utah. Dallas is leading the series 3-2. This is a toss-up, so minus 115 on both. I don't know. I see Dallas taking this one, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, this one's interesting because I think Dallas probably has the best player. I'm not a big Jokic guy, but saying that, Jokic is the type of player with how big he is that he can completely dominate the paint and take over the game. For me, both minus 115 on the money line. The Mavericks are minus 1 point, and Jazz are plus 1 point. Toss up either way. I mean, I guess I'd throw a parlay together and say Dallas minus 115 on the money line and to cover the spread at 1 point.
Yeah. Dallas, that Luka is just on another level. He can win a game by himself. And I don't know what it is about Utah, but they just seem to choke year after year after year. Yes. And they, even though they're one of the best teams in the league, usually there's just something about Utah. I can't really full faithfully put money on them. Okay, sure. So let's jump over to the NBA draft, which is starting in 33 minutes here. Now, this one is a very confusing draft because there's no star. I heard this on ESPN the other night, and they were talking about how like this draft is very hard to dictate because there's no star ball toucher, which means like there's no star quarterback or running back or wide receiver. It's all about the defensive lineman. It's all about the offensive lineman here. Um, so let's jump into it here. You wanted to talk a little bit about quarterbacks. So the number of quarterbacks taken, we have an over 2.5 at minus 141 and an under 2.5 at plus 102. So you look at teams that might need a quarterback in Carolina. Maybe Seattle looks at one. But I think Seattle has plans to go on the offensive or defensive line. Uh, do the New York Jets do something with quarterback? Do the Giants do something with quarterbacks?
Pittsburgh.
There's, pardon?
Pittsburgh Steelers as well.
Yeah, Steelers. So like, even though there are these teams that obviously need a quarterback, I think the general consensus is that you can get that same quarterback in the second round. So there's no point of using the first round pick on them.
Yeah, I mean that would be the smart thing to do in my opinion. However, every year we see teams get a little bit nuts and reach for quarterbacks. So I'll always take the over on number of quarterbacks taken. Over 2.5 pays out at minus 141. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see 3, maybe even 4. I guess the wild card becomes, with the teams like the Jets and the Giants who each have 2 top 10 picks. Do they trade back to try to draft a quarterback a little bit later in the first round? Do they, for the Jets example, I think they pick 4th. Do they take an offensive or defensive lineman at 4 and then trade back into the 20s to take a quarterback? Or do they get a little bit crazy and take a quarterback in the top 10? Because I think if a quarterback goes in the top 10, other teams are going to start to panic and realize that, teams aren't necessarily drafting the best player available. They're going for position, and they might have to reach for a quarterback themselves, right? So I think it really depends if we see a quarterback go in the top 10, but in general, I'd always bet the over.
So based off of most of the draft predictions, they have them at 2 quarterbacks going. And they have the New Orleans Saints and Pittsburgh Steelers picking quarterbacks in the first round, which leads us to an interesting debate, and that is first quarterback drafted. Now, in the Sports Illustrated one, they have New Orleans taking Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh taking Malik Willis out of Liberty. This one has Bet99 has Malik Willis at minus 189, and then Kenny Pickett at plus 165. And I think the reasoning behind that is that people aren't 100. I think that whoop, sorry about that. My internet seemed to have cut out there.
No, that's okay.
So as I was saying, I think that the general consensus is that Pittsburgh is going to take Malik Willis unless he's gone by the time that they get there. But there is some question about, is New Orleans going to take a quarterback, or are they going to ride this, wave of who's their quarterback right now? It's
I have Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston.
Hill. Yeah. Like that. Taysom Hill was kind of, I guess, promised the starting job this year. So do you think New Orleans is going to take Kenny Pickett, or is the first pick going to be Malik Willis with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think Malik Willis is the first pick. He gets the comparisons to Michael Vick. Obviously that's a very high bar to clear. But when you look at Malik Willis and you read some of these draft experts, it seems to be the consensus is that his pro throw ability is a little bit higher than Kenny Pickett. I mean, Kenny Pickett played in a down conference this year, had an extremely talented group of receivers around him, whereas Malik Willis is really the only sort of NFL caliber talent on his team. He did struggle a little bit with the quote unquote easier throws, but anytime he had to make more of a pro style NFL throw downfield, he seemed to do pretty good. So combine that with his mobility, I think Malik Willis is the first pick.
Yeah. I think that you're correct there, but I think that, yeah, watch New Orleans, because that is something that I think could, like, I don't know, people don't really know what New Orleans' plans are. They're gonna have a new coach this year. Sean Payton left, so we'll see what happens. One bet that I think is actually very interesting is the number of running backs taken in the first round. Now, under is minus 200, over is plus 149, and the over is 0.5. So they don't think that a running back is going to get drafted in the first round, which, based off of how dynamic running backs are and how important they are to offenses, I have a very hard time thinking that 32 teams are going to pass on a running back.
Yeah, me too. I mean, last year there was 2 taken, I think, maybe even 3. And again, it's one of those things where, like the quarterbacks, despite how much there's evidence and talk about, you don't need to reach for a running back, especially in the first round, it seems like these teams can't help themselves. So, for one running back to get drafted at plus 149, that seems like a pretty good return on your money.
Yeah. Are there any other bets that are interesting you here in the NFL draft betting world?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for myself, selfishly, is Chris Olave, the receiver from Ohio State. Where does he get drafted? He's been really linked to the Packers. However, the Packers don't pick till 22, and there's a few teams ahead of them that could use a receiver. So the line there is under 16.5, over 16.5. Under pays out at minus 205, and over 16.5 pays out at plus 150. I think the Packers are going to make a move up the draft board. They have 2 picks, 22 and 29, plus Jordan Love potentially in play. So, I can see them moving up probably to around 12, 15 range to draft this player. So I would take the under 16.5, which pays out at minus 205.
Yeah, so according to SI's mock draft, Chris Olave is going to the New Orleans Saints, who with their first of 2 picks, so number 16 overall.
Yeah, so that, again, that's right in around the range of where he would be picked, right? So, New Orleans works out as a potential good trade partner for the Packers, just because, Kenny Pickett probably isn't as good as Jordan Love. He's also older than Jordan Love. So if you assume that Malik Willis is gone by 16, does New Orleans trade back potentially, 16 for 22 and Jordan Love, so they get a younger quarterback with a bit more pro experience, keep a first round pick, and the Packers get to move up and get rid of a backup quarterback and take a position of need. So that's really something that I'm looking for. Unfortunately, the line is over under 16.5. So in that case, you'd have to be on the under, which only pays out at minus 200. But that would be my bet, minus 205, excuse me, on the under 16.5.
Yeah, and make sure to check out the NFL draft. It is in Vegas this year. And from my understanding and the photos that are one of our previous guests, Bowman, is posting, because he's in Vegas right now, the stage is set inside the Bellagio fountain.
Mm-hmm.
So the players will walk onto a stage that's floating and meet Goodell there. So, I'm surprised that none of these sites have will a player fall into the fountain odds, because I would take yes on those for sure. Somebody jumping in when they get drafted, or something happening where somebody's in the water by the end of the night.
Yeah, you never know.
Okay, I guess that will do it for this week's episode of the UFO Show. Make sure to head over to area51sportsnetwork.com/betting. There you can, once you're there, there's a link that will lead you to bet99.com. You get $600, up to $600 off as a bet back bonus on your initial deposit, depending on what you put into the site. and make sure to bet responsibly. So for Andy, I'm Adam, and thank you once again for joining us this week.